is what we're going to be talking about is the time frames of the 15-minute, 5-minute, and 1-minute. Now, many people can't trade these because they don't have time to sit in front of the computer, but it's designed for those people who can sit in front of the computer, so you have something to do while you're waiting for a longer time frame to set up. You can use the same type of setup, but use it on the 4 hour, 1 hour, 15, or the 1, 15, and 5 possibly. So you can use the same setup on the larger time frames, but we're just going to show the one on the 1, 15, and 5. So what it has to have is the 15-minute has to be a 4 bar. There's a 4 bar. It doesn't make a difference which side of the line it's on. This happens to be on the correct side of everything. Happens to be on the correct side, so that's even a better situation. But it has to be on the correct side of the 34 and a 4 bar. Now let's go to the 5-minute. It has to be the same thing. It has to be on the correct side of the line, which it is, and it has to be a 4 bar. Then the 1-minute has to be a 4 bar. The 1-minute has to be a 4 bar. And it has to be, so this one's not below right here. The others were below, but it has to be below the 34. So this is where you would receive a scan, is right up in here, and that's the scan that's good for a good 20 plus pips on that. So once again, the strategy is 15 has to be a 4 bar, correct side of the 34. 15, the 5-minute has to be a 4 bar, correct side of the 34. 1-minute has to be a 4 bar, which it is. It has to be the correct side of the 34, but this one also has to have a saddle. On the trend alert, it has to be a saddle, which it is right here, meaning it was going a retracement and it turns and comes back in the direction it was going. So that is why that one went off right at that point. And so that's the 1-minute has to be a saddle. Now let's go back and see if there were some others that would have gone off earlier. Well, I see a saddle here. And I see a saddle right there. 4 bar saddles, 4 bar saddle, and I see one right back there. 4 bar saddle. So these 3 bars right here, I'll put this line in the center on the middle one. Now, that's what the 1-minute would have shared with us. Let's see if the 5-minute confirms that. The 5-minute, the 2 off to the right would not cause a trade to be signaled or scanned. The one to the left, yes, it said it would agree. Now, so what we're doing is go from bottom up now. Let's go to this 15-minute. 15-minute, it would not have given you any scans right in there. Okay, so you're not getting hundreds and hundreds of signals all the time and just blowing your mind away. It has to be very specific. It's very high probability. And so even though the 1-minute was giving you some information right here, the 15-minute didn't agree. The 5-minute agreed a little bit right in here. So there was a little bit of a trade that you possibly could have taken based on if you're just using the 5 and the 1. So that's why this is a good strategy, in that it doesn't give you a lot of signals, but the signals it does give you are very high probability. Let's look for some others now just to confirm this in your minds. So it's below the 34, and it's a 4 bar going short. Let's see if the 5-minute, okay, the 5-minute, it has to be, it's a 4 bar, and it was a little bit later. So I'm going to move this down just a little bit. So it's below the 34. We go to the 1-minute. The 1-minute is a 4 bar. It's below the 34, but it's not a saddle. So where you would get the signal on this one is right there. See, there's your saddle, 4-bar. It came down, went back up and tested this many times. That's what it does. It tests, and then this would be the safe trade right here. It doesn't mean that it's going to be, everyone's going to be a long trade, but it's going to be a safe trade. Now, the one thing that we've noticed on this is if you take the 15, 5, and 1, is you can manage it on the 5-minute. Now let's look to see how this would be possibly managed right here on this one. If you were to take it right there on that bar, go to the 5-minute and manage it. There's a couple of things that you can do. Is what I'm looking for is an exit when one or two things happen. Either the filter changes, crosses the zero line, or the filter and the Mayo are the same color, going the opposite direction. So if you had entered this trade right here, you would have a small loss or a break even. But the other thing to take into account is what's the trend alert doing? Trend alert didn't say that that was the case. Yes, it did do a little retracement right here and back up to test at 34, and then it actually took off again for the big move. So now, once it's done this, this is where you could start looking for an exit. It's right here. When the Mayo and the filter are both the same color, right there, or the filter crossed above the zero line. So either of those two bars right there would be exit signals. You notice that also some of the signals from the nth degree, it's the hot lines are crossing and or the color change on the Hakanashi. So right in there you get a whole bunch of signals that say exit the trade. So there you have the setup and how to manage it. Let's go back to the first one, because we didn't talk about how to manage that one. The first one we shared was had to be a 4-bar right there. Now let's go to the 5-minute, and it was a 4-bar as well. And the 1-minute went right over right here. So this is where we enter this trade on the 5-minute. Now let's go to the 1-minute. Then we go to the 5-minute to manage. Is what we're looking for is one of two things. See, this was really strong on all the indicators. Right here, it changed the color once, and then again right there. That's the first time that both the Mayo and the filter were the same color. So right here at the bottom of this dip, or the next one up, so right in that area would be where you get your exit signal for a 20-pip move. So that's how you would manage the trade, is manage it on the 5-minute. If you want to manage it on the smaller, on the 1-minute, that's okay, that's up to you, but that's how we manage it on the 5-minute.